From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
It's my pleasure to present one of Latin America's foremost writers. Homero Aridjis was born in Michoacán to a Mexican mother and a Greek father. That was new to me. One of Latin America's foremost literary figures, he is also extraordinary for his pioneering work as an environmental activist and his two-term stint as president of PEN International, which defends freedom of speech. And I'll have to be brief. By my best count, he has published 50 books. And so we won't go into all of that, but I would like to say he's notable for the number of genre that he works with. He is first known as a poet. His first books were poetry, and his international fame first came from being a poet. But he's also written deeply researched historical novels, such as 1492 and others related to the Encuentro of the Americas, works of theater, children's literature, which is very charming, I can assure you. He's an active journalist writing in Mexico, also in other parts of the world. Just on a brief review, I pulled out a number of pieces from the Huffington Post, which I realized I had read before, but I didn't realize they were by him. And a very important role as an environmentalist, which began, I think, in the 80s, especially because of the disappearance of the monarch butterflies in his home state of Michoacán. So I told him today, this is not a monarch butterfly, but it's my homage to Homero today. A few other honors. Many of his books have been translated into 15 languages, many of them into English. He has won important literary prizes in a number of countries. In Mexico, Xavier Villaurrutia. In Italy, Grinzane Cavour. France, Prix Roger Caillois. 2 Guggenheim fellowships in the United States, New York Times notable books, and on it goes. He's been visiting professor in distinguished U.S. universities. He was a founder and president of the Group of 100, an environmentalist association of writers, artists, and scientists, for which he has received many awards. He served as Mexico's ambassador to Switzerland, the Netherlands, and most recently, UNESCO. His most recently translated book, I would like to say into English, as far as I can see, is a book of poetry called A Time of Angels, which is illustrated by the extraordinary Mexican artist Francisco Toledo, and it's a very beautiful book. I have asked him if he would be...
No, go on.
I asked him if we could begin by his reading this poem in Spanish, Credo. We only have one sheet of paper. We're being very ecological. He's going to hand it back to me, and I'll read it in English. Aquí, Credo.
Sí, Credo. Well, it's very strong poem as a credo for Mexican identity. Se Credo. No creo en el presidente de la República, ni en el empresario que explota los girasoles. Mis dioses no tienen poder político, ni económico, ni son estrellas de los medios. Son inútiles, improductivos y efímeros. Creo en la Virgen de Guadalupe a sabiendas de que no existe.
I think most of you understood that, but I'll read it in English just in case. It's called My Creed, or I Believe. I don't believe in the President of the Republic, nor in the entrepreneurs who exploit the sunflowers. My gods have no political or economic power, nor are they media stars. They are useless, unproductive, ephemeral. I believe in the Virgin of Guadalupe, even knowing she doesn't exist.
Thank you very much.
This is a poem from 1999, and I guess
Yes.
before you begin your prepared remarks, one of the things I would like to ask you is you're known as a public intellectual, an environmentalist, a writer, about the ephemeral nature then of the things that you value.
Yes.
And how does that fit into all this concrete work that you have done?
Yes. Well, I believe in I value the ephemeral things that, as I say, have not economic values, etc. I believe in these ephemeral things that are the permanent things in our life. Water, the wind, the trees, the animals, everything that goes with us in daily life. These things that come and disappear every day, but they are the permanent things that stay with us forever. It's what I believe and I value. Yes, and go on, please.
No, another question in some of the criticism or elogios, praise and criticism I was reading, at times you're called apocalyptic or millenarist, the end of the world, and some of your poetry and even your prose has this theme, is the possibility of a ruined universe. And yet you're an optimistic man. How do you resolve this contrast between optimism and apocalypse?
Well, as a matter of fact, I am very pessimistic. I think that everything is
good actor.
No, an actor. I want to be realistic in the thing that the destruction of the environment, the destruction of the planet, etc., is going on, and both as a human, this is my pessimism. I don't believe that governments, society is going to save the planet of the current destruction. There is I said that the men of future, never they are going to understand our actual delirium of destruction of the planet. Then I'm part of this principle. Then as a human being, I believe I have to do everything in my hands to defend life. But being realistic, don't trust in the human people, the politicians, the government, the businessmen, etc. That I have to be realistic because I know them. But I have to trust in a movement of conscience, in human people who have to save the planet. Children, women, common people, anybody who believes in the value of the planet and the value of our existence. And myself as a human being, I must say I am humanist. I believe that humans are like ephemeral angels, or people have very a power of conscience, of change, of saving the planet, and we have to rest in these powers, not in demagogia and the government, etc. Only people. Then I believe that me, as a human being, I have to do everything to work for the planet. And I believe that besides our professions of everybody like you, is nothing is more important besides your own work, besides your family, etc., to work for life. And to work for life is to work for the planet. Okay. Then I am a pessimist, optimist at the same time.
He mentioned angels, and lest you think that these are delicate beings,
Yes.
this book, An Angel Speaks, is the angels here have an extraordinary range.
Yes.
Almost demonic
Yes.
to angelic, we could say. It's a very powerful book.
Yes. Well, it began, this book, I myself as a poet, I resisted to write a book about angels because there is a long tradition, San Augustine, Santo Tomas de Aquinos, there was a Swedish philosopher called Emanuel Swedenborg who conversed with the angels in the streets of London. There were in paintings, everywhere is the presence of angels. Rilke, many poets have wrote about angels, and I was not my intention to write about angels. But one evening, I have two daughters, and one is a writer living in London, and the other was a student at the time at Princeton University. And I visit my daughter, and we went to have dinner, and suddenly she said to me, I am going to tell you a secreto. I hope that you don't become angry. And I said, it depends of the secreto. I can't promise anything, but it depends. And the secreto was very inoffensive. She said, my sister and me, we tattoo angels, she in her arm and me on my back. A few months ago in Mexico, and I didn't know. Then, but they were not educated in any formal religion. They believing in God, in life, nature, etc., certain principles. They were very, very firm, but not in any formal religion. Then she said, since I tattooed this angel, my life has changed because I feel a presence on my back, and my daughter, and my sister also, that comes with us wherever we go. And I said, well, who can object that you tattoo an angel? I can. If it was a horrible dragoon or a horrible drawing, I reproach because it will be an ugly thing on your body. And your body is sacred, it's beautiful, and to have going around with a bad drawing is terrible. And she said, oh, nothing of that. Then I came back to Mexico. I was forgetting about it. And when I was in Mexico, one day I awake like at 3 o'clock in the morning with this conversation. And I began to write a poem about what she told me, the effects of the angel on her back. But as integrated to a human body, to a human existence. And she was becoming like protected by this angel. And I wrote a poem. Christmas was coming. My daughters were living abroad. Then I put the poem away. And next morning I saw it. And I said, after all, it's not very bad. And as a matter of fact, I wrote another one in different, I saw angels everywhere. Invisible, visible, even a tree was an angel, my dog was an angel, everything around a river was an angel, and I was giving material presence or human presence to the angels, but not the abstract theological angels, but in our daily life. And I felt surrounded by angels. A child, etc., was a presence of an angel. Sunrise, a sunset, everything was the presence of this. Then I wrote many poems, and I was expecting for them to come to Mexico and giving to them as a present for Christmas. And then they came, and I gave it to them. And suddenly there was artists like this, Francisco Toledo, and there was a man who said, I want to have all the angels in the Mexican arts, in the colonial times. Wow. And in to the present, photos, everything where they can have the perception of an angel. Then they publish it. But that was the presence of the angels. And happened that this book, this little book, An Angel Speaks, that is a translation published in England. There is a society in London called the Smederevo Society. Emanuel or Swedenborg, as in English, but it was Swedish, Smederevo Society. And this was an 18th century philosopher who wrote about the angels, about things in heaven, hell, but in a different perception. He was famous saying that he conversed with angels in the streets of London, and he influenced William Blake and many artists and poets since then, even in Spanish. Borges wrote about him. Then one day I was walking in London and I came to the bookstore. There's an old house nearby the British Museum. And the people welcomed me, very mysterious. We became friends. And they saw a book, Eyes to See Otherwise, already translated into English, and they have it there. And then we communicate through angels to them. And last year, they make me an irresistible proposal. They said, you will be the first non-English to become president of the Smederevo Society in London. And there is no salary, but they said, this is a venerable house. It's an old building, very beautiful, like 18th century, etc. And they said, you become the president. And please, they said to me, bring poets to the house. Make it contemporary and dynamic. And this October, next month, we have our first event in this Smederevo Society with Evening of Dreams. Because Smederevo wrote a book called Journal of Dreams. He had dreams like celestial, very fantastic, supernatural dreams. And then I said, well, let's go to bring even English poets, English writers, and psychiatrists to talk about angels and expressing the concept of dreams now. And they were very happy. And we're having our first session, but English literature. And I am very proud because I am a Mexican and bringing the presence of English artists, writers, poets there. For me, I am very proud because they didn't. And that was the thing, a relation with Smederevo. They published this book, and if you go to London, they have in all the windows, the Smederevo Society this book. There's the presentation, etc.
They will not forgive me if I don't ask you about Mexico.
Yes.
And the question I would like to ask is, Mexico has such a powerful intellectual and literary artistic tradition, which was made especially concrete in the 20th century. How do you see your place in that tradition? It's a very rich, and it's often related to being in the public sphere, unlike our own literary tradition.
It's very mysterious. Mexico is very mysterious, very complex country. Then it's a country that is not easy to understand. It's full of problems, but also full of marvelous things. You can, now in these days, you can read about monsters of violence in the drug traffickers, but also you go in the streets and you can meet wonderful people, very innocent, very friendly. And then it's always your perception of Mexico is changing. And I grew up like that. My state now, Michoacan, when I grew up there and I was a child, it was a monarch butterfly paradise. I was used to go to the hill to see millions of butterflies flying in the trees. And for me, it was a fantastic ceremony. But now it's the same state has became full of violence because of drug traffickers, and it's like, you go there and you find the peasants, the ordinary people very friendly as usual, but you have this shadow over the state, and the countries like that. And when I was a poet, I have not a job. I dedicated my life writing poetry. Then suddenly there was a value as a poet in Mexico. I met once the president of Mexico in an art exhibition, and he was with many politicians there coming, and I arrived late, 7 o'clock, coming from the street like that, alone, and suddenly they were coming toward me, and I said, where can I hide? Because still people is coming. And the president stopped and said to me, what are you writing? And I was, at the time, 32 years old. And I said, I wrote a book, Washing Her to Sleep. It was an erotic poem. And I said, Mirándola dormir is the title in Spanish. And I said, I would like to talk to you. Come to see me next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And the guards said to me, be half an hour before in the official residence. And when I arrived half an hour before, suddenly I saw the president coming and began to talk to me about poetry. And I couldn't believe it. I was a little embarrassed, and said the next Thursday, go to see the Minister of Foreign Affairs to talk. And I went, I said, why? And he said, you are going to be cultural counselor in Holland, in the Netherlands. And I was at NYU at the time, also teaching, a visiting professor, and I went to Holland. And later, another president appointed me as ambassador, also because I was a poet. And I couldn't understand that for these people, sometimes very criticized politicians, had a sense of humanism, love for poetry, the arts, and then it was very complicated because in the street sometimes you criticize them, and corruption and etc. But sometimes in person they were very attached to the arts. Then I became ambassador to Switzerland, later to Holland, but always appointed by the presidents. People I didn't know really. And last job was at UNESCO. And my mission was to save, to protect the monarch butterfly, to make the sanctuaries human heritage of humanity. Digo. Then was like that. Then it's very contradictory, the relation with the country. Since Octavio Paz, the poet, when I was 26, they wanted to send me to Nicaragua to cultural attaché to participate in the celebration of the centennial of Rubén Darío, the poet. And they said, to these things, we have to send a poet. And I was 25. And I didn't want to go to Nicaragua, I must to confess, because I didn't want to be in the country ruled by Anastasio Somoza. Then I said, I don't want to be there. But I was saved by the Guggenheim to go to Europe to write poetry. That was wonderful.
Our time is flying. I would like for you, we have about 15 more minutes, so we need to decide your poems or your talk.
Yes, what you prefer. We can probably read the poems and explain the poems in order more and have a dialogue with them.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to read the Spanish?
Yes. Yes, there are 4 small poems related to, because a una mariposa monarca. Yes. Yes. Later we can place this in internet or something like that. You can read it. Because my wife will be very critical because she helped me to translate it into English, and she will be very offended. I said, I translated and you didn't read it. Then she will be, yes, very, very sorry and critical. Well, yes. This una mariposa monarca to a monarch butterfly is like the more or less expressing the vision to see a monarch butterfly not only as a butterfly, but also a supernatural presence in the hills, and more or less beyond the instant of perception, almost like something like almost an angel apparition, beyond life. A una mariposa monarca, tú que vas por el día como un tigre alado, quemándote en tu vuelo, dime, ¿qué vida sobrenatural está pintada en tus alas para que después de esta vida pueda verte en mi noche?
To a monarch butterfly, you who go through the day like a winged tiger, burning as you fly, tell me, what supernatural life is painted on your wings, so that after this life, I may see you in my night?
Un día un hombre olvida. Un día un hombre olvida un mar, un continente y un planeta. Olvida las facciones de su padre y las huellas de su propia mano. Olvida el fulgor de sus ojos en otros ojos y el sonido del agua en su cabeza. Olvida el timbre de su voz y el ruido de su sueño que despierta a otros, pero no a sí mismo. Olvida el traje y la casa que habitó, la calle y la ciudad que lo olvidaron. Olvida el amor, la revelación, la muerte, el espejo que no devuelve ya su imagen. Un día un hombre se olvidará a sí mismo, olvidará que olvida.
One day a man forgets. One day a man forgets a sea, a continent, a planet. He forgets the features on his father's face, the prints of his own hand. He forgets the flash in his eyes and another's, and the sound of water in his head. He forgets the timbre of his own voice and the noise of his dreams that wakens everyone, but not him. He forgets the suit and the house he lived in, the street and the city that forgot him. Forgets love, revelations, death, the mirror that no longer redeems his image. A man will forget himself one day, forget he has forgotten.
Now a poem called In Violent Times, en tiempos de violencia. This poem was written in moments when there were killing of journalists, killing of women, killing of children in the streets of Mexico. And then suddenly that happened to me at midnight or in the morning. I had a dreaming, etc. And I awake writing this poem, feeling the presence of angels in these times of violence. The translation is here. En tiempos de violencia. En tiempos de violencia hay ángeles que vuelan sobre las calles desoladas como si llevaran alas en los pies. Con terminales de rayos en las manos se configuran en los antros del alba en busca de la materia gris de gente ejecutada. Corriendo por las carreteras alarmados, no traen ropajes ni joyas celestiales, ni caras fulgurantes, ni voces musicales. Se sabe que están allí por una huella dorada o por los dedos transparentes que acarician una boca, una teta ensangrentada. Escapan de los retenes militares y de las esposas de los policías federales acurrucados en el rincón de un baño, o del closet donde hay gato encerrado, saltan como una sombra para dar agua a los ametrallados. Con almohadas rellenas de nada, recorren los basureros de la madrugada donde reposa la cabeza de la mujer violada. En tiempos de violencia hay ángeles en esta nada.
Será nuestra última, ¿no?
Yes, this one, okay. This one.
In violent times there are angels who fly over desolate streets as if wearing wings on their feet. They turn up in the dives at daybreak with blades of light at the ends of their fingers, searching out the gray matter of murdered people. Alarmed and racing along the highways, they wear no robes nor celestial jewelry, no glowing countenance, no musical voices. One learns they are there from a golden footprint or transparent fingers stroking a mouth, a bloodied breast. They escape the military roadblocks, the handcuffs of the federal police, huddled in the corner of a bathroom, or where there's a skeleton in a closet. They spring like a shadow to give those mown down water. Bearing pillows stuffed with nothing, they scour the garbage dumps of dawn, where lies the head of a raped woman. In violent times, there are angels in this nothingness.
Thank you.
We have so little time left, but I would like, for those who would like to ask a question, we have a few minutes.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much. Iñárritu just won the Oscar for Best Movie, and there's a Mexican Renaissance in cinema with Cuarón. And I was wondering whether the writers of Mexico are proud of this, or do they look down upon film as an inferior art form?
Well, the Mexican film has been very important in the so-called golden age. As a matter of fact, I grew up in a movie house because my father had a movie house in the village called Cine Apollo. Then I was used to films since I was a child. But these movie directors, they are appreciated in Mexico, but also they are, their production is more American than Mexican. It's supposed to say they are more Hollywood directors than Mexican, but this is good that they have a presence here in the United States. Yes.
Homero,
Yes.
you have been fighting to save our planet and all things environment and climate in a time in Mexico when it wasn't on the agenda. And I'm very curious, Homero, what have you seen change since the 70s and 80s when you started down this path to where we are today with Felipe Calderón cheering big initiatives and the conversation happening at a highest level? What do you see as the big change here?
Well, when we started fighting for the environment in 1985, the priority were to save the monarch butterfly sanctuaries, also the stop the massive killing of marine turtles in the Mexican beaches. They were killing like 100,000 a year. And also to stop a project in Baja California, where Mitsubishi and the Mexican government were planning to build the largest soil works in the world, and in the sanctuaries of the great whale. There was 5 years of fight, and we stopped the project. And I received the threats. I living with guards 1 year. I didn't know that if they were protecting me or spying on me. That they were more dangerous, the government guards, than to be alone. But anyway, we had advanced because there are many laws, there were programs. Now in every state we have environmental delegates from the government, but at the same time the destruction of the natural heritage of the country is worse. Because it's like the fighting for the environment is like the Sisyphus myth. You take the rock to the hill and goes down again. Then never a victory is a victory, because if a president stops a project, next president comes and tries to have it again. And then it's an endless fight. Then for this reason, we need always new generations, people to take the fight from our hands while we go on. But it's like our fight, the defense of the environment is like a drop of water in a hot rock. Evaporates. It's really, we need the whole of humanity to defend the environment.
Homero,
Yes.
I think we have time
Yes.
to read the poem Somos Hijos.
Okay. There is another poem I was writing because I had a feeling that many of the most horrible crimes committed in Mexico in these days were like if the priest of human sacrifice of the past were around us again. They came back to be in the disguise of policemen, drug traffickers, all that. And then I wrote a poem based like a mythical poem called Somos hijos de dioses crueles. Somos hijos de dioses crueles. De nada sirve ver sus pirámides derruidas. Aún no se borra la sangre en sus peldaños. Aún sus manos asfixian nuestros sueños. Su imagen está grabada en esas piedras. Su espectro andan en nuestras ciudades. Al fondo de la pesadilla, sus sicarios nos acechan con puñales negros. Aunque se vayan de esta tierra a otra parte, volveremos a procrearlos. Volverán a emerger de nuestro adentro con nuestras facciones atroces, despiadados. Somos padres de dioses crueles. Here is the English.
We are children of cruel gods. We are children of cruel gods. No point looking at their ruined pyramids. The blood still hasn't washed from the steps. Their hands still strangle our dreams. Their likeness is graven on those stones. Their ghosts stalk our cities. Deep in the nightmare, their enforcers lie in wait for us with black daggers. Should they leave this earth for elsewhere, we will go back to beget them. They'll come back up from inside us with our features, appalling, merciless. We, parents of cruel gods.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Let
much.
us
Gwen.
thank Homero Aridjis.
Thank you very much. Gwen. Very nice.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.